Good morning, Professor Mike Dillon and colleague Dr. Dunford in UK, and good afternoon for our colleague in Indonesia. Our distinguished participants, Ibu Ninin and team from Fish Quarantine and Quality Inspection, and also the quality inspector from 47 technical unit of fish quarantine across Indonesia. Bapak Dr. Sunaria, Pak Sudari, Pak Ahmad Purnomo, and Ibu Novia, and all of the GQSP Smart Fish 2 team and participants. So we are very pleased to start our afternoon sessions. We have the special guest, maybe this Mr. Mike Dillon. It's not very familiar for you, but this is new for me. I'm very pleased to know you, Professor. Everybody here is adoring you, not only in big.
No, Scenario doesn't adore me.
Yes.
We're just good friends.
Not only in fish quarantine, but also in the polytechnic all over KKP, the ministries are adoring you. So I'm very pleased to getting to know you and also to have your session. As you may know that this is the third workshop that we had. First, it was on October 2020. It was with you. So based on training, the fish quarantine developed kind of the SOP for the remote inspection. After the 6 months implementation, and in the last week, we had a kind of the review of the SOP. And today, we have very intensive discussion to develop or to review and also to repair or to the SOP. Therefore, before we will have discussion with you, so Pak Sunaria will lead the discussion. So there will be the presentation from the BKIPM. Pak Sunaria, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ita. Good introduction and good voice, good English, better than me. Better than me. I think Mike already know that my English is very, very, very bad.
My English also very bad.
Yeah, not very bad, but very difficult. Very difficult to catch your voice.
Actually.
Okay, so I think we can start this session now. And as Ms. Ita said that gentlemen or the ladies from KIPM will present the concept of the draft of SOP. So please, Mrs. Ninin or Jenny or other, please, time is yours, but I think don't take time too much so we can discuss with Mike. It's difficult to catch him, so we have to explore him now. Okay, please, Mrs. Hendari Mulyan.
They will do, right?
Oh, okay. Sorry. So please, Mrs. Dede.
Thank you, Bapak Sunaria.
Yeah, okay, please.
Good afternoon, Mike and all of the participants. On this occasion, we will present the draft of SOP for remote inspection. This SOP, based on our resume from our discuss in the morning about the technical, about the remote inspection activities carried out by several technical units of Fish Quarantine and Inspection Agency. The SOP that we convey on this occasion focus on the main step and document required in the preparation for conducting remote inspection. Let's share the screen. Okay, for the first FQIA receive food business operator application to maintain the HACCP certificate. The application were submitted to the head of FQIA, CQ, the head of the Quality Central for the, the application submit to the head of FQIA through the website hasap.bkipm.kkp.go.id by attaching a valid PMMT or HACCP certificate, a recent internal audit result, and then HACCP document according to the scope of the product to be inspected, and then CCP monitoring record at least for the 3 months, and then record of the production process activities from 3 different production codes, and then a record of the implementation of verification include result of tool calibration, result of product testing, raw material testing, water and ice, and also internal audit and supplier audit. The others document that we need is a procedure and record to employ health checks, including the COVID-19 protocol, and also document and record of internal training. Based on the application from the food business operator, the PIC shall evaluate the application related to the completeness and suitability of the application document, as well as the availability of supporting facilities for remote inspection. Evaluation process include A, the person, the PIC of the area shall check the completeness and suitability of documents by no later than 1 working day. B, when the application is declared complete and appropriate, the person in the PIC of the area communicates with a PIC in our TIU of FQIA and also with the FBO to determine the time and the inspector who will conduct the remote inspection. C, when the application is declared incomplete and or unsuitable, the PIC of the area communicate with the FBO to complete and adjust the application document by no later than 1 working day. D, the inspector who will conduct the remote inspection by no later than 1 working day must 1. Develop an inspection plan based on the level of risk of the product to be inspected. Create a communication group between the quality inspector and FBO. Confirm the location of FBO using GPS map with evidence of screenshot of the location map. And then confirming the availability of raw material to be used for the production process. Then identifying and confirming the participant on the remote inspection activity and the division of tasks, and determine and agree on the platform to be used the remote inspection, and also agree on the data media sharing that will be used. And then the platform used must be able to record all remote inspection activities. The quality inspector who will carry out the remote inspection must conduct a desk audit and record the result of desk audit on the form at least in 1 working day. Desk audit must carry out, among others, quality guide according to the scope of the product to be inspected, critical control point monitoring record, at least 3 months, record of production process activities for the 3 different production codes, and record of implementation of verification, among others, result of tool calibration, result of product testing, raw material testing, water and ice testing, internal audit, and supplier audit. Based on the result of the desk audit, the quality inspector determined the focus of the inspection related to control of process and technology used during production, as well as to conformity of the hazard plan. The inspector and food business operator carry out a remote inspection trial to ensure that the remote inspection can run well, no later than 1 working day before. The inspector and food business operator have to prepare adequate facilities such as internet network with adequate and stable connection in location. Gadget and device for remote inspection have proper usability, detected GPS location, and agreed virtual application for video conference to be operated, and also camera. If during trial the results still detecting problem on both sides, then the inspector and food business operator will reschedule to trial the next day to solve it. And then, if the result of this evaluation is accepted and complete, and internet network capacity is adequate in a stable connection, the person in charge of inspection state that the application for certification of PMMP or HACCP application is effective. Then the remote inspection can be carried out. Based on the result of the evaluation, the head of Center for Quality and Safety, as a behalf of the head of FQIA, issue the inspection implementation task letter within 1 working day at least. Thank you. I think the draft SOP still need the improvement, Mike. Furthermore, a small team will working to complete the SOP. Thank you, Pak Sunaria and Mike.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dede. Yes, I think it is clear. So, Mike, you have any question or suggestion or
I
or whatever?
Okay, so you've defined an SOP to carry out the inspection. Yeah. So this for ITA Sulia, this is the 5th number 5 workshop, not number. So we had 4 workshops last year. We've had 1 workshop now. So it's clear. It's a clear process. It's a good inspection process. Okay, so for me, for 7 years, I worked with CIFA in Canada on inspection processes. So the process is clear. The issue is, what is the objective of your remote inspection? Okay, so if the remote inspection objective is to validate and verify the HACCP plan, is this plan supposed to cover COVID? Okay, so the big issue which Indonesia faces is China and other countries want your health certificate to be countersigned to prove that your COVID controls are in place as part of your, effectively, your food safety system. Okay, so last November, the Chinese government changed the requirements to request that your fish inspection system effectively demonstrated that you had controls of specific things for that a particular virus. So scenario is that, so I am the British government, Canadian government, Australian government, Danish government. I have, you know, as Secretary General of IAFE, I have 20 or 30 governments write to me all on COVID, what their fish inspection system now needs to do for COVID. So the question I'm asking is, the Canadian government, they're talking about their fishery vessels, they're talking about their canneries, so they're asked by China to confirm that their inspection system is covering COVID. So the question I'm putting to scenario is this inspection system, remote inspection, also intended to control COVID?
Okay, thank you. I think the question should be passed to
Ninin.
Ninin CS, but as far as I know, you know, Miss Dr. Emberek, you know Emberek? Dr. Emberek.
Yes, I know Peter. I know
Yeah,
Peter well.
Peter
Yeah, I know
Emberek,
Peter
yeah.
well.
Yes, my friend also, yeah. We work with WHO. He
Yes.
said that COVID, it's no point to inspect COVID because COVID is not food safety issues.
Yeah,
But-
that's not what he, no, scenario, it's not what he said, right? He caused more
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah, well, he said yes. But
No,
in China,
what he said was, before his inspection, the issue that we had was this COVID human to human issue.
yeah,
What WHO confirmed was this was frozen meat product where COVID.
My-
Bat.
Yeah.
He said,
well, see,
no problem to me. Bat, chicken, frog, all the same.
yeah.
His,
I agree.
his issue, this is for the inspection team, is that he felt and this now we will see, his statement is, and regardless what WHO say, this is about what the Chinese government say.
Yeah.
The Chinese government, if you move the product, want specific controls, FAO, WHO Codex guidelines in place for your food safety program, right? That means you will be working on this for the next 10 years, I tell you now, right? Because, first of all, this is to the group. Point one, China have said, if you want to move product internationally with the health certificate, you've got to demonstrate that the supporting codex guidance related to COVID specifically is in control. So your inspection system, according to the Chinese requirement, is this. Every country, not just Indonesia, every country that moves fishery product has been requested to do this. One. Number two, my understanding from the preliminary findings from Peter, I was supposed to be with Peter. Peter retires this year. Okay. John Ryder retires this year. I was supposed to go with Peter to Geneva, with John to Rome. We all go together for celebration because we all retire this year, right?
I see.
Okay, right. So before he was being involved in a COVID, I was helping his son get a PhD place UK, right? So Peter has said the finding from WHO is this was frozen meat where COVID survived on the frozen meat, and the frozen meat COVID was transferred to human, and this was the we call the causation chain. So that means that frozen fish, we now have a problem. So my thing at the minute is, when this eventually gets agreed, this means that we, in terms of our food safety system, will need to look at whether this frozen meat transmission route is what Peter's saying it is. If that's what WHO say, then we need to make sure that our a frozen fish a supply chain ensures that there's no COVID. So I go back to the a question, and this is to a Nining.
Yeah.
One, when we actually look at this, when we validate the food safety system in this remote inspection, are we looking to ensure that this, because that's what we did when we developed the workshop, we looked at remote inspection, but the remote inspection scope that we looked at included the controls that needed to be in place for COVID. So I think you could have SOP 1, which is your standard HACCP SOP. You might need an SOP 2, which would be to look at the specific controls for COVID. Yeah, right. I think you need SOP 3. You need to look at what you actually do for validation and verification of specific controls under the Codex guidelines. You need SOP 4, an emergency procedure for when you actually find this. So I don't want to give you a lot of work, right? But I say, number 1, you have your standard SOP for HACCP. No problem with what you say. I think you need to focus more on validation and verification in your HACCP plan. But fine, this can be a separate thing from your normal HACCP, right? But you could have, and you should be thinking about, who is doing the validation and guidance to the validation for the factories when they actually say that certain things within the HACCP plan work.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. So actually, the main our job is to validation is for the HACCP system actually. So for the COVID protocol, usually we do also we check whether the FBO implement the HACCP COVID protocol or not. For the FBO who export the fishery product to China, because until now we have received around 15 notification from China that they said they found like a trace. They said yes, trace of COVID in outer packaging.
Yes,
that's why. And I mean it's really difficult for us to discuss with them. I mean we have many time bilateral meeting with the GACC, but it is a little bit difficult. I mean, whether we inform. I mean, there is no like scientific evidence that COVID is the food is can, what do you call the
it can survive.
Yeah. Yes. Even I mean during the transportation from Indonesia to China is more than 2 weeks, I think. So almost a month. So I don't think they that, and they said that they I mean they just it's actually trace of COVID. I mean RNA.
Yeah,
So
but this is a job for you need to create a scientific opinion on your risk assessment. Okay.
Yes.
So I think
but
no, but for Sidari,
no, I mean
yeah.
But now actually
Yes,
the main thing that we verify the implementation of the HACCP system in FBO actually. So I mean for the China, for the fishery product to be exported to China, we just need to see whether they like what do you call the distancing, and whether during working in the and then they have the protocol like how to check the COVID, and then how to disinfect the room and then the equipment like that. So we just check that only for the IPO they exported to China, but actually our mine is inspection is on the HACCP system.
Okay, Nining, we know each other.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Dr. Sunaria, if I may
Yes.
to interrupt. Could we also have the kind of the translations? Ibu Novia could help for the little bit translation or kind of the summaries, if we
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Novia. You may perhaps summarize a little bit, and we can continue discussion.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Excuse us,
Very
Mike.
good,
Yeah.
Mbak Ita.
Silakan, Pak. Okay. Excuse us, Mike, because
Sure, absolutely.
just for the better understanding. Bapak dan Ibu, tadi barusan disampaikan, apa yang disampaikan oleh Ibu Dede sebetulnya adalah summary, ringkasan mengenai apa yang kita susun pagi tadi. Dan setelah itu ada pembukaan dari Pak Sunaria dan Mike. Pada dasarnya yang kita susun juga diingatkan untuk juga mengcover masalah protokol kesehatan. Jadi remote inspection ini, remote audit ini banyak hal yang dicakup. Tadi katanya ada 4 SOP, tapi saya nggak sempat catat apa saja, tapi salah satunya adalah HACCP. Dan harus ada juga penekanan mengenai mitigasi COVID-19. Kenapa? Karena HACCP saja untuk produk yang masuk ke China itu tidak mencukupi. Nah, tadi juga sudah disampaikan oleh Bu Nining bahwa ada beberapa hal yang sudah kita lakukan, walaupun transfer dari bekas-bekas trace-nya COVID ini bisa melalui makanan beku, tapi
could you speak in English, please?
justru saya mau translate untuk
She's translating scenario.
sebentar untuk yang lain dulu, Pak, untuk peserta yang lain dulu, Pak. Nanti jadi sedih, maksud saya ada bahan.
Okay.
Sunaria is sleeping.
Ya. Just a moment. Ada subtitle. Jadi itu yang saya mau sampaikan itu, Pak. Selanjutnya silakan dilanjutkan. Terima kasih.
Mike, where's he? Hello, Mike.
No, I'm coming, Scenario. I needed coffee.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess summary what Ms. Novi said, that in the remote inspection, the procedure include the monitoring of the COVID-19. The head of the people who working in the factory, and also for the inspector. So the inspector and the people who working in the factory should free from COVID-19.
Yes.
So because we have to care them, okay? But in relation with the Chinese case, I think this is a government policy. I don't know. I think Ninin should speak about this. I don't know what's the policy of the government of Indonesia about the China. In my opinion, this is not too relevant. Not too relevant. You know, any COVID and shrimp, frozen shrimp.
Scenario.
In my opinion, but again, it's kind of the Ninin's policy, the policy of the DG of Fisheries. Ninin, will you?
Pak Sunaria, the question
Yes.
of Mike is whether this SOP include COVID-19 or not.
Yes.
Just give the question yes or no.
Yes, but only for the people who working in the UP and for the inspector only. In my opinion, like Bali procedure.
No.
He asked for the certificate or the about the COVID-19 free for the people.
Learning from the presentation of BKIPM,
Yeah, but for the product, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I asked to Ninin, she is a government official.
Yeah.
She should be responsible about this because this is
Yeah.
a official control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know the others. Maybe uh, that's what I thought too. That actually, our main function is to verify the HACCP system.
Mm.
Yeah.
We also
Yes.
verify the protocol only for the FBO who intend to export to China. I don't know whether this is in the SOP. It should be included for the COVID, because Mike said that if it is included with COVID, it should be there is 4 SOPs. So I think maybe it's more to the HACCP verification.
Yeah. I tell you, every country, this is now all UK inspection system, all European inspection systems have changed because of COVID. Right? It's totally changed. So you have to have in place a specific measures for COVID, or you're not allowed to produce. Right? That's the, so as the lead, as the head of the master's degree in food inspection and control when we actually ran it, you know, this is 30 odd years ago, everything changed. Inspection systems throughout Europe have changed. Inspection systems worldwide have changed because COVID will not go away. You know, this thing's not something that will come, then we'll do this, it will go. Okay, so you decide. When we looked at this last year, 4 workshops. Okay, first of all, we dealt with how do you do remote inspection? 1. 2, how did we accommodate the type of controls that we inspected in the factory? So a scenario, 2 people died in the seafood plant 2 weeks ago here.
Yes.
So
yes.
what do we do? Do we close the factory? Do we ban the? So we need, from an inspection perspective, we need the public health people in the country to tell us, as a factory, as an FBO, meaning to tell me, okay, I have 300 staff, 150 on each shift. My HACCP plan's this, but 2 people have died of COVID. Do I close the plant? Do I ban the product? So, and this, you know, what we've been told, we've been told that this will be here for another 2 years. So even if we control, so so there are 2 things: what we do for HACCP and the control system that we've put in place for HACCP, which is cleaning, what we actually do when we actually wash down, what we do with the lorries that come in, what we do with the packaging material. All of this ties in with COVID. So I don't say you do one thing or the other, but I say to you, everyone else, every other country that's handling fish, that's why I think you need an SOP for first year remote inspection at HACCP, and then you need to discuss. And I think you need to have a group who look at a risk assessment in terms of a COVID, and you actually have you've decided what you want done, and then that's included either in a separate inspection, but somewhere or other you should think of that. This is a discussion. I'm not saying this is correct. What I'm saying is
correct.
If this,
So what?
If this was me, I would certainly be thinking.
So what I suggest to fisheries last time, that the fisheries factory should inspect it about how they prevent COVID. Yes, this is a separate one. Yes, I agree with this. What I don't agree is that the virus transfers to the food I'm not really agreeing about this. But to protect the people who working in the factory, yes, the UP or the processing manager should carry out inspection about this. And the Mlinin CS should also inspect about how they carry out to prevent
Okay.
COVID.
Okay, Novia, why don't you translate? Okay, and then we'll stop and then we come back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mike. That's better for us. Bapak dan Ibu, izinkan saya sedikit mentranslate hasil diskusi apa yang dilakukan, yang dibicarakan tadi. Jadi pada dasarnya ada dua isu utama. Pertama adalah remote inspection itu diharapkan dilakukan karena adanya pandemi COVID. Yang kedua, ketika kita melakukan inspeksi terhadap HACCP implementasi, maka diharapkan juga mengcover sekaligus mengcover terkait COVID-19. Jadi ini satu kali jalan dapat dua rengkuhan. Nah, karena apa? Karena ada respon dari China terkait trace dari COVID ini yang ditemukan di sana. Bahwa ada diskusi apakah ini termasuk penyebab dari wabah pangan atau tidak, itu mungkin nanti kita bahas di lain session gitu ya. Thank you, Mike. That's the translation.
Okay. Let me respond to a scenario. First, initially, we agree, okay, because I looked at the scientific evidence for a COVID transmission. Everything that was published actually said this was not possible. So it's a public health issue and not a fish inspection issue. Okay, initially, okay. However, we say pregnant or not pregnant. Okay. So when we say like for Christmas, a miracle birth, one okay. But now WHO have said the transmission route is from frozen product to human. Okay, it's no longer a discussion for me. I've actually got the world leading body that actually talks about transmission saying to me as the advisor to my government that this thing that I said was rubbish, like you, it doesn't survive. They're saying it does survive. This is the epidemiologists at WHO. So I've got to say now, okay, pregnant. The transmission route is from the frozen product. So I need to look at the inspection system nationally and actually make a decision. Not now, we don't, because I think for Ibu Nining, it's correct. The remote inspection should be the HACCP plan. The issue that we've got is emerging hazard. In the past, we were saying this wasn't a food to human transmission route, so it's a public health issue. But when we actually say it is, people to meat to people, now we've got a fish issue, and we need to look at how we break the chain. Okay, so I think my advice would be for Nining to set up that there should be within the group a scientific risk assessment, a study actually looking at what exactly in terms of creating a scientific opinion based on fact, which is how you normally work in a inspection. You form a group and you actually say, based on this is what you do. Stop. We don't need to do more than that at this point. But we need to have acted at strategic level as the risk managers, because the factories can only validate things that you have decided have got a specific risk and how you expect it to be controlled. So that's your role as government. The factory's role is to actually put in place a plan that actually deals with that. So I think there's a piece of work, maybe something that UNIDO, Scenario, some others can actually get involved in. But I think you need to not work at operational level. I think we need to work at strategic level as the ministry, as the government, and actually say, we understand China have got an issue. We've put in place the normal COVID controls. This is what happens, but we also need to study the actual risk and put in place specific interventions in the factory that we demonstrate can actually reduce that risk to an acceptable level. Sorry, Novia, I pass it back to you.
Would you reply to Mike?
Pak Sunaria.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Can I inform
please.
something to Mike? Mike, Dylan,
Yes.
how are you?
How are you, Matt?
Mike, at the moment, I'm working on the SOP
Yeah.
to mitigate
COVID.
virus transfer or in the fish processing company.
Okay.
I'm still working on it, but it is not the assessment, but the SOP to minimize the transmission of COVID-19 in fish processing company. Hopefully it will be ready by this week. And tomorrow we will have a discussion on this draft. And probably once it's finished, we can share the manuals, the SOP with others. But again, it's not the assessment. It's the SOP to minimize the potential.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, carry on. But what I say though is, if you want to validate that the interventions that you undertake reduce the risk to an agreeable level, right?
Yes.
You need to have and I think I put in place, because we had we started this, for me, 1979. So 1979, we started this at Unilever, 100 microbiologists in the group, actually setting up the food safety plans that needed to be simple, because we were the largest food company in the world. So long before I ever joined to do a PhD, we looked at HACCP as a tool that we used to ensure that we actually kept things to an acceptable level. That means that you need to know certain things. You need to know how effective the sanitation program is in ensuring that hand washing works, right? You need to know that the sanitation program is effective in reducing surface contamination. Okay, but all of those things need to have protocols that you use when you actually evaluate that particular method for its effectiveness. What I did in the back of the how to clean, because I did 100 factories in Canada. We actually studied the this was when we were actually looking at HACCP plans. By law in America and in Canada, if you bring in legislation like HACCP, which it was at that time, you had to show that this wasn't something that would cost too much money for the operators, right? So
Yes.
both the American government, so Spencer Garrett, who was the head of the Codex
I
group.
know.
Spencer. So they brought me to America. I did the same thing in Canada with the deputy minister at that time, and we did studies where we were actually looking at the effectiveness of cleaning, and we found 90% of the cleaning programs that operated in factories caused contamination. Okay, they didn't reduce contamination. They actually increased contamination within the plant. And that was because people didn't understand transmission routes. They didn't understand vectors. They didn't understand exactly how really how food control in a factory really works. So as I came from factories, in scenario will say, I wasn't really interested in doing a PhD. I was hired by Cambridge University and Geest paid me to do the PhD because they wanted someone practically to actually look at this and say, if this was our group like Unilever, what would we do? And the first thing that we do in this case is prove that the control measures that we're talking about reduce the risk to an acceptable level. So I think it's right, Pernemo, that what you're looking at is what the practical methods are in the factory. But that means we need to know, here's the standard method for evaluating COVID. Here's the standard method for undertaking the cleaning program. Here is the sample size that we'll actually operate. It's statistically valid against Codex. In other words, the number of samples that you'd actually take, depending on the thing that you're actually trying to do, would give you a confidence level when you produce the result that would allow you to make a statement that at 1%, statistically, when I've actually taken those samples, this is what I actually find. So I think it's unfair that they give all of this work to you. I'll say that for me. This is a team activity, and you need a team on this, and you need the microbiologists on this, and you need the scientists actually telling you when you look at these particular ingredients in a chemical mix, at what temperature, when they make that cleaning mix up, is this activated? If we don't clean the organic material off the surface, will it work? If there's erosion on the surface when we do the cleaning, the scenario, you understand, right? Because right, so many things. So I think it's good that you do it, but I would talk to the scenario and talk to the other people in the country and actually look at how you design a validation protocol so that you're absolutely convinced that statistically when you do the thing, it will actually give you the result at the level that you want. So I that's what I said. I separated standard HACCP, which is for the enemy that we normally fight, whether it's listeria, salmonella, whether it's actually a toxin residue, whatever. We know what we can do. We don't know with this virus, I don't think, exactly what works and what doesn't. So I think there's great work for Bigor, there's great work for iPride. This is an ongoing thing. This won't be the only virus that occurs. So I think you need to get your army ready. You need to get your scientific team actually ready to actually tackle this. Very, very bright PhD young scientists, people that can actually support this. And it's practically, tomorrow we put out the first COVID protocol. In the background, we actually continued to prepare that we answer those sort of scientific questions at a practical level, because I was not ever interested in doing PhD papers, but I was always interested in how did we actually make this function within the environment of a practical plant, working with the National Physics Laboratory, the metrology team, the quality infrastructure. You need it. And then you need the specific scientists that actually operate the systems that are actually dealing with that particular problem. So I think you've got 10 PhDs to work for you, Pernemo, for the next 10 years.
Okay.
I think could we finish the discussion of COVID? Can we move to the other subject? Yes. I think it's quite enough, and Mrs. Ninin will abstract this discussion and write on the SOPs. Okay. So any other question? I have question, Mike. So how
No,
to in
before
this?
Pak Sunaria.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, Pak
please.
Sunaria.
Please. Yes.
Sorry, just remind Mr. Mike Dillon. I thought that Mike have a presentation, right?
Yeah,
You do have a
yeah,
slide
yeah, but don't
presentation.
worry. I think that the first thing,
Yeah.
Nining, is discussion. I don't mind the presentation. I said I prepared the presentation for you, not for, so people can take it and read it and do what they want. If they want, for me, more interesting, the discussion, Nining, right?
Discussion. Yeah, I think
Because
so. Yeah.
so if the moderator, my boss, Dr. Sanari, says present, I present. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
If the boss says discuss, I discuss.
Yes. Yeah. During this morning discussion, there's a big issues how to make effective remote inspection.
Okay.
I think this is the big question. Could
Well,
you give the
comment on
comment on this?
effective
How
remote
to make effective?
inspection? I say if it's done in real time, okay. So if you want to do live inspection and you can follow the auditee, first of all, correctly, you've told me the communication system's been checked. You've actually ensured that the auditee understands the scope of the inspection. You've defined what the scope is. If you're really trying to do this remotely, yeah, we did remote inspection first, 1995. Okay, so at that time we had canneries in Thailand supplying product to Canada. Okay, so we set up an IT system in Canada that was linked to the cannery in Thailand. And what we did is the same inspection that we'd normally do for a cannery. And we asked, so we had the team on the phone, we asked them to collect the specific data that was relevant to what we wanted to see from the cannery. You as the inspector can say, go and show me how you do your CCP a sample. Okay, that's how you take the sample. Put the, if we're actually checking, we've got a critical limit when we actually say that the water needs to be tested, then we want to see the factory test, right? But we need to know there's the CCP plan. Here's what the critical limits are. When the first ever review of a government inspection system took place in 1995 in Canada. Okay, so Spencer Garrett, me, Carlos, we spent 6 weeks. Carlos. I know. So we spent 6 weeks. I was the statistician. We spent 6 weeks reviewing the fish inspection program in Canada. I said, okay, check how many corrective actions have been issued by the factory. Okay, how many times has that factory stated that the critical limits have been out of control, or have actually no factory? You know, you're going to have this happening regularly. You're always going to get corrective actions because you're not actually hitting the point at which you'll close the factory, but you've exceeded the point at which you actually want to keep the factory in control. If the factory are telling you no corrective actions, I already have a problem. Okay, do I believe the people who tell me that the water's always pure, that the ice is always in control, that the temperature never drifts above the point at which target intolerance, right? It's above the target limit. So provided you, which is the inspection team, have actually understood the factory HACCP plan, and you've understood target and tolerance, and you've looked at what they've said in the past, you plan. This is every auditor, what you want to look at before you go and what you want to look for before you go. So an audit is about observation. Yes, look at, well, not even in there, but look at and look for. Remember, we started training auditors in probably 1985. I ran in the degree program, auditors, GMP, HACCP, and normal AA hygiene. So we did this, for me, it's 35 years. And Nining knows because we went round Indonesia when we were getting ready for the aquaculture inspection, and we went to different parts. So it's a very practical thing. If you go to the factory, you should know in that factory from their HACCP plan what the targets and tolerances are on the critical control points, and you should ask them to physically undertake the check when you're there and plan it how you expect it to work. So in the other one, so you go to your limits and your plan, you check what the CCP says, you check the limit, and then you get them to undertake is the temperature of the incoming material correct? Is the water quality correct? So follow them. If it's going to take them 1 hour to do the check, you stay with them while the check's done. It's a auditing is not a science, it's a practical skill.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, you need to follow the.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, saya rasa sudah seperti yang banyak dipresentasikan tadi ya, bahwa kita harus fokusnya adalah ke plan, kemudian di asetnya apa, CCP-nya di mana, bagaimana actionnya, itu yang perlu mendapat perhatian waktu remote assessment. Ya, zaman itu begitu. Ada any question from the floor about the effectiveness of the remote inspection? I think it's quite simple. Quite simple.
Well, yes,
please,
yes, Mama Nining.
Okay. When we discuss, and then Pak Sudari told us that maybe it would be helpful if we also make a questionnaire like for the self-assessment for the FBO. Like you said, maybe last time, is it score on the doors like that? Or I mean, in our SOP is not included yet. Is it necessary to put there? I mean, how helpful that self-assessment?
I said to you, the first stage is that the factory that you visit should complete a self-audit. Yeah. So I'd said they should, against the scope that you set. So if it's a cannery, it's one level of risk. If it's actually a wet fish plant, it's another level. So, but you get them to complete all of the checks from their perspective that you want done, including the tests that you want done, because you want to validate what they've done is just a report. But when they've sent you that report, you want to track the things that they've said against the standard, and then you can actually ask additional questions. But you shouldn't go to the site. For me, the whole idea is that you're helping them prepare. You're helping them understand these are the things that they need to do to be in control of their factory. If they don't understand it, and it's when you receive back the self-audit, if there are things that they've not completed or they don't understand, it's a good opportunity for your inspection team to advise the FBO, these are the things that you need to do and why. So it's a communication. But at the end of the day, the law is the law. If they don't comply and you've actually got specific things that you say occur, that's your choice as an inspection. So you can't do it for them, right? It needs to be, they do it, otherwise you inspect yourself. Okay, our problem when I ran inspection, we were being called to court as expert witnesses for the defence of the factories that were being inspected because we gave too much advice to the factory. Okay, so you need to keep a clear separation between your inspector thing, but it means that you can verify that they're using correct labs. It means that you can check that their equipment's in order. It means that you know how to take the sample, because if they have to take the sample and send it to a lab for a check, all of those things from the self-audit, you can get them to do, which gives you an opportunity to prepare for the audit.
Okay, I think it's clear, ya. Sebetulnya sama dengan internal audit, ya. Yes, please.
Ya. Pak Narya, mungkin ada teman-teman yang mau bertanya
no
dalam
views,
bahasa
ask me a
Indonesia,
question.
tidak apa-apa.
Silakan. Kalau ada yang akan bertanya pakai bahasa Indonesia, tidak apa-apa. Ada yang bertanya dari audiens, dari kawan-kawan inspektur, apa saja ya, apa saja. Terutama yang berkaitan dengan kesulitan Anda di dalam menginspeksi. Ada dari Surabaya, Bali, Makassar, Medan, Cirebon, Jakarta. Yang Metro Mini ada. Tidak ada?
I have a question from Novia.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Bu Novi, silakan Bu Novi.
I can see. You want me to answer?
Yes, please, Mike. Yes, we during this morning session, we always have issues that we cannot get all the evidence because the camera or the gadget or the devices that we use during the remote inspection is limited, or in the big processing area, the camera cannot direct it to the expected evidence, or sometimes the FPO operators try to avoid the area of
you're good at
findings.
it.
Yeah, so how we could manage the situation, Mike?
Okay, first of all, it is your inspection. You know, I've been the technical manager, technical director of factories. My role is to keep the inspector away from the areas that I don't want them to see. That's my job. So my role is to take them to areas that I know are in control. That's my job. Okay. So if they're here for an hour, we'll have a big coffee, we'll have a meal. Your role as the inspector is to get the stuff that you want done and to control the inspection. So it's a game, you know, so they want to do one thing, you want to do the other.
Yeah.
So one, your schedule, your timetable, your evidence that you want to collect. So you know what you want, yeah? So with a document, right, first thing on a document is when you get the document, what is the objective and who is the official owner of the document? Okay, so if this is a HACCP record in the factory, that by law needs to be signed by a person who's qualified to operate that procedure. The signature on the document needs to match the signature that's approved as a person who's capable of running that a HACCP a control procedure. So your HACCP plan for the factory should have the procedures. It should have the education certificates of the people who are qualified to operate. If this was a cannery, you know, they've got to be approved operators, and there's got to be an education certificate that goes alongside it. If it's a laboratory check, it needs to be an approved lab person, and they need to have a signature. So first, what's the document? We're interested in HACCP documents. You know, there are many documents in the factory. So if the intake check on temperature needs to be controlled instrument, so you've actually got a temperature probe. Is this a calibrated probe? Who's authorized to use it? Who's authorized to actually make the check according to the HACCP plan? So you should know before you go, right? So first, okay, you know what you want to look for in the intake area. You plan your visit to the intake area. You know that you're going to look for the HACCP documents related to the control in that area. Okay. You've looked at the HACCP plan of the factory, and you're going to look for in the document the authorized signatures that demonstrate that intake area is in control. One. If it's a calibrated instrument, you're going to look for the calibrated instrument, and you're going to look at, on the calibrated instrument, when was the date it was calibrated? Yeah. And does that match the date that you've actually got on the calibration record for the instrument that you look at? Okay. So if you've got a fixed instrument in the area, then you're going to look at the calibration record on the instrument panel. But this is in the HACCP plan. It should be all, you know, this is about targets and tolerances. If the temperature's too high, if it's tuna, the fish isn't allowed to be used. If the ice isn't at the right, I'm talking about they've not brought the fish temperature down right. All of those things you're in control. If it's not correct, you should know from the HACCP manual what the corrective action procedure is. And you should ask them in the area what happens when the temperature's not correct. And they should tell you in line with the HACCP procedure, according to the document, what exactly they do. So you need to prepare before you go into the area. I tell you, Ninning, what I always do. I want to... Sure, Nova, go.
Yeah, I got all the picture. Can I just translate it to everybody? Sure. So, okay, ya. Bapak dan Ibu, izinkan saya mentranslate apa yang disampaikan, tapi ke remote inspection-nya, ya, ke area remote inspection-nya. Begini, kita tahu kita sudah menyiapkan remote inspection. Kita tahu keterbatasan kita tidak mudah mengumpulkan data di area yang tidak bisa kita kunjungi. Jadi, menurut Mike, yang diperlukan adalah perencanaan yang sangat matang. Ketika Bapak dan Ibu sudah tahu apa yang akan kita cari, anggaplah misalnya ada CCP di satu area. Kita mau cari apa di area CCP itu? Misalnya mau cari angka kuman, mau mencari apakah ada pencemaran, dan apakah ada masalah kalibrasi. Jadi sebelum kita minta melihat nantinya ke inspeksi tadi, yakinkan bahwa kita akan bertemu dengan person in charge di sana. Siapa yang akan operator yang bertanggung jawab terhadap running sistem di CCP itu. Jadi kita harus ngobrol tuh. Pada saat remote inspection nggak bisa diwakilkan oleh misalnya supervisornya lah atau siapa gitu ya. Untuk mendapatkan apa yang looking for-nya itu, apa yang kita cari. Jadi kita akan look at di CCP area, ketemu dengan person in charge yang tanda tangan di dokumen tadi, terus kita tanya sama dia, biar dia yang jawab nih. Jadi jangan orang lain menurut dia. Apa yang terjadi yang biasa dilakukan, dan apa yang terjadi kalau terjadi dasi. Bagaimana kita melakukan perbaikan dan lain sebagainya. Sehingga kita bisa maksimal mendapatkan evidence dari inspeksi yang kita lakukan. Mungkin itu, Pak. Thank you, Mike. Clear.
One other point. Sanitation's key.
Okay.
Okay. if you want to verify that the sanitation protocols work, you go as they come back from lunch. So it's not just look for, it's the time.
Oh, okay.
When people come back from lunch and go into the factory, they must wash their hands. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Now there's a queue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
will they still comply with the hand washing protocol when they're busy? So you
Okay.
need to plan the time of your inspection. You need to plan the area that you inspect. You need to plan the documents that you look at. You need to plan the equipment that you want to look at. All of those things, if you've planned it in advance, your visit's very clear. And the documents, but you know, if you want to get them to take samples is the other thing. Get them to take a temperature record, get them to take a sample of the water or the ice and check it follows the sampling protocol.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, that's
Any other question? So, Mike, this is the HACCP plan must be correct first.
Yes.
Yes. If HACCP plan is not correct, everything worse.
Yeah, but the inspection service have already approved the factory. The FBO has been signed off on that HACCP plan.
Yeah.
So it should be correct. But what should happen, which is now, every year, annually, the HACCP plan's reviewed.
Yeah.
And you're looking at emerging pathogens.
Should be reviewed every year.
Annually, yes.
Yes.
Or if a new pathogen or new hazard arrives, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a new, it was like a enteropathogenic E. coli. When we actually had a heat-resistant E. coli, we needed to go back to the plan and see what happened. Or if we've got a resistant salmonella that's not being controlled by the cleaning procedure, we need to check. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question?
Ya Pak, mau bertanya.
Please.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Sunaria, terima kasih Pak Mike. Saya ada pertanyaan terkait dengan
English, please.
trial.
No, you can translate. Don't make her speak in English.
She got a good English.
Oh, okay.
What?
Better than mine.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the trial audit. If you may see in the process diagram, especially in step number 5, in terms of the trial audit, how far the trial could be reflecting the process. For example, for 100 process, in the trial things should be just okay, just let's say 50%. If the video call, it's okay. If we can see the picture or section that we would like to see, that's enough. Or do you have any specific criteria in terms of the trial or any tips for doing this trial audit? Thank you, Pak.
Yeah, well, you should do the HACCP plan. you should verify by remote inspection the HACCP plan that's been produced, but you can choose your sample. If you decide that the important part, this is your team, you've looked at the scope of previous audits. If they've got through every audit, but they've been put in a actual temperature control for target and tolerance, then you would maybe direct there. It depends on the audit history of the factory and how many times you inspect the plant. I don't know, based on risk, based on your risk category, would normally dictate how frequently you undertake the inspection. But I would always check whatever the CCP points are in the plant. I would want to actually see the key areas within the critical control points are actually under control. But if it's a big factory, if it's a big cannery, maybe you would select specific areas of the cannery that you would check.
Okay. Enough, Mesita.
Terima kasih. Yes, it's very clear.
Any other question? we have a lot of time left. If there's
Yeah.
no question, I suggest to Mike to present your paper because
Okay.
everybody having difficulties to understand what you said, what
Yes.
Scottish language.
After this is
Huh.
41 years in England, 30 years working overseas. Still, Malinini, can you imagine
But
how
not-
terrible this accent is if you come straight from Scotland?
But
Could you
actually,
please
you are
present your
better
paper?
now.
Okay, let's share screen.
Yeah.
And I'll do. Let me do it. Dan, where's the? I'm trying to find. Yeah. Okay. You can see.
Not yet.
No, it's supposed to be share screen. Dan, I'll click share screen. They don't seem to be able to see it. I don't understand. So I can. So go back.
Ternyata masih gaptek juga ya.
Here.
Gaptek juga.
Good. Share.
Sama dengan saya gitu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Better.
Yes. Good.
Yeah.
Come on.
Come on. Okay. So this was your plan, yeah? So we talked a little about this in terms of how you want to actually operate inspection, starting from your step 5 back to step 1. So 3 things. First, I talk a little bit about the COVID. Then I want to come back to the inspection process. So we've led, Dr. Sanaria has taken us through the discussion. Maybe you need to think, because you've got to think about strengths and weaknesses, what you think is strong about your current remote inspection and what you think is weak. So from today's discussion, you need to think where you might want to strengthen the system. Okay, but I think you can do this with scenario. So I'd said, look, if you're looking at your inspection system, according to every inspection service that I work with, they're looking at how they formally implement the controls according to the Chinese requirement, every government. But it's not just an SOP for the inspection. This is about an SOP for validation and verification. This is about the actual competent authority system. So there's a number of what I'd call codex, WHO, FAO guidance documents that have been referred to in the system for things that you could review. So this is your draft SOP. So one of the things that you're doing is, have you verified the flow? Have you checked that the movement through the factory is as been agreed? How are you validating? How have the CCPs been validated? And specifically, how has the sanitation system been validated? Because particularly the sanitation area will be the one which governments that are actually got mutual recognition agreements or have actually got a competent authority agreements. They'll want to see that those things are there. I think you've got to feed back on the regulation itself. So I'm interested in terms of the regulation as well as the SOP, what will actually be done within your effectively within the power of your government department. And then you've got your SOP, which we've discussed, but I would be interested in knowing when it's done, what you think you might change. So I've said from our side, when during this pandemic, we've been told to only work in the plant if absolutely necessary. As we said, 2 people died a week or 2 ago in the fish factory here, and public health are actually asking why the factories are open if they don't need to be open, and are the controls in place, because some of the workforce are actually suffering. And you've said, Nining, actually Novia and people are saying, you need to give the inspection service proper equipment that allows the inspection service to actually do remote inspection. So if you want the inspection service to do remote inspection, they need modern equipment, and they actually need to have the best equipment available to actually undertake the task. So there is an issue about how remote inspection works. There's an issue about, in a country like Indonesia, you can buy equipment that strengthens the signal in an area of the country, which would allow the inspection to take place in islands where they've not actually got a Wi-Fi access. So again, I'd started to look at this, and I thought it would be useful if you were going to inspect Bitung in Sulawesi. If they didn't have Wi-Fi there, then you would be able to take someone equipment that would be there for a week that would allow you to have access so that you could do the inspection. Not necessarily in the factory, but it might be 1 mile, 2 mile away from the plant, but would allow the inspection to take place. So I think the equipment for Wi-Fi is available. It's there for a disaster relief. So there is equipment that we could actually look at for providing communication links. Now, all of us that have worked in factories, the idea that people are 2 meters apart in the factory, which is the COVID guidance, doesn't necessarily stand. So it's about how this guidance and location marking, if we want to go down the COVID route, actually works. And do we allow a low risk business operators, meaning in a wet fish plant, but if we want to control it in a pasteurized crab plant, is it different? You need to think through. Do we increase hand washing and surface cleaning? If we do bring COVID control in, do we reduce the time? Do we put plastic barriers in place to prevent spread people to people? Do we get people to work side by side rather than facing each other? Do we reduce the number of people? So again, from a practical control perspective, some of these things any factory can do. Other things it's difficult to be done. So if you decide, and I think Nemo was looking at maybe validating which of these controls work, but these are all the type of things that are put in the factories to mitigate spread person to person through aerosol. If we're expecting this 2 meter to work, what about canteen areas? What about break areas? What about similar areas where people can congregate at different times in the plant? So most problems that we had in terms of sanitation programs were on the night shift. So not during the day shift, but in the night shift in the plant, when the normal shift patterns completed and you're actually cleaning things down and things happen, you get a breakdown in control. So there's no good inspecting the factory during the day. I used to put a team in and we inspected the factory at 6 to 2, 2 to 10, 10 till 6. So we did a team who went in for 24 hours for 2 days so that we got the entire factory cycle. What about visitors? How do they get managed? How do we stop them contaminating plant, spreading disease, whether it's actually a dysentery, salmonella, or whether it's actually COVID? What about engineers? What about contractors? How are the records kept? So when you do your HACCP inspection, does it show you who's worked in different areas of the plant? Does it show you what visitors you've had? What about technical, moving from area to area in the factory? Are they signing in correctly, signing out correctly? Because that's where your problems occur, especially if they're moving from high risk or low risk to high risk areas in the facility. If you want to reopen plant, what about ventilation systems? Usually we're checking the actual build-up of bacteria in chill units, and we're actually taking samples from the chill unit. We're actually taking air samples in specific areas of the plant. But what about not only for the normal organisms, but for COVID and ensuring positive pressure? Always 80% plus of the breakdown in control in plant is sanitation. Effective cleaning procedures. I know Pernemo, when he looks at the effectiveness of the different protocols, the one that's going to be top of the list is the cleaning programs and how the cleaning team work, when they actually clean, what cleaning compounds they use, and do they produce bacterial soup? A cleaning mix in a bucket is not magic. If you keep putting organic material in there through mops, buckets, cloths, you'll eventually reduce the killing power of the cleaning chemical, and you'll effectively contaminate the plant surfaces. So you need to check that people understand chemical mixes. You need to see how long they're effective. They need to know how to make the mixes up, and they need to know the temperature at which they work and the compounds that you actually want to use. Hand washing. I've said after break, after toilet, actually ensuring that how you run the hand wash is clear, that the hand wash is topped up, it's the right material, and that you don't have organic waste building up. And the drying systems are difficult. What about equipment that you clean? What about the sequence? Do you clean the roof, then the walls, then the floor? Do you clean the floor, then the walls, then the roof? Do you clean the contacts? So there needs to be cleaning procedures. There needs to be a cleaning plan. There needs to be a cleaning schedule that actually works in the plan, so that whether it's for HACCP or whether it's for COVID, the cleaning procedures are absolutely vital, that you understand that there's a clear plan, there's a clear schedule, how often it's done. Yeah. Face coverings. Do we now expect face coverings? How often are they changed? What type of coverings do they use? It's difficult to work in a hot factory with a face covering. It's a difficult thing to do. Shift pattern. Ninning, I've said it doesn't matter COVID or HACCP. Same thing. In the shift pattern, the late shift is always the shift that you'll get problems on. So you need to ensure that the back shift are actually in control, that the cleaning programs in the back shift are in control. Yeah? And that you've actually got samples from different shifts, not only the day shift, but the night shift. You've got the evidence that the cleaning programs on the night shift actually work. With scenario, we have a debate, which is this a public health issue? In which case, we don't worry about the transmission route, a food to people, it's a people to people issue, it's a public health issue, or is it, as WHO say, a frozen food, a contamination route? Then we need to look at COVID. Okay, so I've given you a refresh on COVID. We discussed COVID, we discussed remote inspection in October, but in August and September, we looked at remote inspection, we looked at how remote inspection worked, and then we looked at COVID control, because we were asked to do that last year. So for Sulia, there are 4 workshops or 4 webinars that you can get the information for. But the thing that you've said here is, okay, prepare your schedule, prepare your team, and confirm your risk category. Okay, so this is how you expect your preparation phase to work. But as part of that, you should prepare your checklist. You should prepare what you will look at and what you'll look for. You'll prepare where you go. You'll prepare when you go, so that you actually plan your HACCP activity at the right time to capture the right type of records that you want to see. Okay. So you've said create a WhatsApp group. So ensure that your communication link works. Verify the client and the auditor, so the FBO, know which a business, confirm the location. But I think at that point, you're actually discussing the self-audit, you know, that they need to complete a inspection questionnaire based on the scope of the audit that you want to undertake. So that you're saying, I want to, because you're a wet fish plant, we're going to look primarily at hygiene and sanitation and temperature, or you're a pasteurized crab plant, in which case you're going to look at the temperature process, you're going to look at the temperature controls. And post-process contamination, you'll actually spend a lot of time after the ready-to-eat product is produced. So you'll change your inspection focus depending on risk category, and you'll change your self-audit based on audit history. Okay. So you've said a list of required documents. I would have a list of every HACCP record, every HACCP record. You know, what are the records for the last 3 months? What's the history of the inspection? What's the history of the calibration? Who does the calibration work? Who does the laboratory tests? So all of this needs to be documents need to be totally focused on the HACCP system. So it's all the HACCP records and all of the verification tests that you want done for the HACCP plan. Okay. Cleaning schedules, it's not just the schedule. You want the record to show that the cleaning's been effective. You want to have the record of who did the cleaning. Are they on the approved list? Are they trained operators? Who was on the cleaning on the back shift, not the day shift? Who was checking the temperature on the night shift, not the day shift? Everyone's fine during the day, but if it comes to, if the factory operates beyond a normal time, then it's more difficult to have the qualified HACCP operators available. So you want to check this, and always checking that you've got calibrated equipment, always checking that calibration's checked regularly. I've said there's an example validation protocol and how to clean. At one time, I wrote a validation manual for how where it is now, I've got no idea. But at one time, many governments wanted me to say how they do the validation. So you need to have a validation protocols. You need to have the information sources that you've used when you've said is the best way to do this. You've actually got the agreed protocols in your manual to show that you've actually done this. I've actually said, if you're tying this in with codex and hygiene, these are the things that are supposedly in your hygiene protocols, which is your standard GMP for the factory. Everything from your hygiene in your food safety program to your pest control to your personal hygiene. So if you're in a wet fish plant, these are the things that you're really looking at. If you're in a high risk cannery, you've got a much more focus on the HACCP plan. But every HACCP plan is based on prerequisite programs. So the legal requirement to supply the EU is based on the PRPs being in control. So this still needs to be checked. Okay. And the last document that we wrote aligned these procedures with Codex. So I think I did it for both Codex and the Food and Drug Administration in America. I wrote this with Hans Henrik Kuss. So we tried to bring HACCP up to date by saying it's a legal requirement now, if you're supplying the EU, that these things are actually controlled. And then I'd actually got, there's Codex, and I just actually did a comparison between what was in there and what was in Codex. Okay. Okay. So now you're going to make a recording. You say you've got difficulty sometimes making a recording, Nining. So you decide. To me, I'd said our government invested in a system that allowed the inspectors to actually run remote audit. It was a dedicated IT tool for inspection, for remote inspection. Your government, it's okay doing what you're doing now on Zoom. Ideally, as we did when we wanted traceability, many people tried to get this a traceability system operational. Again, I think we put I think in 2005, yeah, I put about 35 traceability software systems into one country. But we had fish inspection manuals in 98. We'd got a simple traceability because of chemical contamination in the fish. We had to prove that the fish that was coming into the factory was traced back to where it came from, and that the product that was sent, it's a simple trace back and trace forward one step thing. But you need to have a dedicated, at some point, you need to have a team with your government. Usually the TRTA program from the EU is about 20 million project. You need to build into that, actually build in your dedicated remote inspection system so that you've got the IT system that you really need. So now we work with everyone using handheld and trying to work without a proper IT system that's totally controlled by the inspection service. Sooner or later, you'll actually get involved in a dedicated IT system as you've got for traceability. And that's something I think the ministry should discuss in terms of future investment supported by a donor group, if that's what you want to do. But certainly our government invested in a very simple system, scores on the doors. It's totally controlled by the inspection service. Everything's managed. The records are there. All the records are there. It's easy for the inspection system to actually operate like that. So we've got recorded for reference. It's so much easier for the inspector if this is all recorded and it can actually be managed. Yeah. I would have said that the dummy run's done at a much earlier stage. I would have had this back at between step 5 and step 4. But you need to make sure it's there. But I also recommend that the inspection service looks at mobile Wi-Fi equipment that can be taken to an area in advance of inspection so that you know that there's Wi-Fi link, as they do for disaster relief. That you've got a team, they don't need to go to the factory, they just put the Wi-Fi aerial link up so that you've actually got Wi-Fi linkage to the factories in an area so that you can actually undertake the audit and you don't have problems with interrupted Wi-Fi because the link is poor. Is that a problem in many places? I think, yeah. So I'd summarize this by, first of all, if the HACCP plan's changed, yeah, it needs to be the same process flow, it needs to be the same order, it needs to be the same sequence. So you need to have verifying the process flow, otherwise the plan doesn't make sense, where the high risk areas are, where the low risk areas are. So are the critical control points checked? That's the focus, yeah. Have we reviewed the non-conformities? Yeah. Have we got the colour code? Have we actually got complaints, recalls and non-conformities? How do you check recall? How do you prove that they can actually recall product if there's an issue? Do you check the complaint file? Do you check the non-conformance? Do you know how to split the screen so that you can be making your notes while you're speaking? I'd said digital skills for the auditor, knowing how to use the different IT tools. And at the end, you'll verify. So I'd said, this isn't correct. I just said, okay, you've got a strong inspection team, maybe weak digital skills. Maybe you're very good at face-to-face inspection, but maybe a bit disjointed with remote. This is not correct. I just put, I'm expecting the boss, the moderator, to fill in strengths and weaknesses, and then maybe there's a report. But I've said, well, if you're wanting all of the inspection staff, maybe you have a few days, which you've already done. Now you have them signed off. So I've actually put, maybe there is some gains on. Hold on, I'll just switch this on. So maybe there's some opportunities, and maybe there's some opportunity for fraud. Maybe there's some health and safety issues, we don't know. But I think that's me. Okay, ma'am. Okay, boss.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. I think it's good presentation. Maybe we can use this presentation to as a reference for your SOPs. But if you have any question regarding this presentation, please, anybody, any question? No question? Everything clear?
This question, Pak Sunaria, in the
Yes,
chat.
please.
Yeah,
Yes,
from
please.
Pak Daniel.
I can-
Okay, I will read for
Yes.
him. For repackaging product, freezing in vessel, would be remote inspection is enough to check or shell inspection on site or on the vessel itself?
Okay, Mike, could you reply?
Well, how do you normally do your vessel inspection? What do you normally do?
Pak Daniel, mungkin bisa dibantu langsung Pak Daniel. Ada pertanyaan balik dari Pak Mike.
Bagaimana inspeksi di... Ada contohnya nggak Pak Daniel? Contoh inspeksi di...
Mungkin maksudnya tadi sampaikannya ke saya, maybe just because it's very simple process, which is only repack and
Oh, I see.
in a vessel.
Hmm.
So should we do it? But it's in the vessel. So whether remote inspection is enough, or should they go to the vessel to check it?
Yeah, but the question I'm asking it, normally you go to the vessel, yes?
Yeah. Normally, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And normally you go to the factory, yes?
yeah.
Same. So
Yes.
then you remote inspect. So it's your choice, yeah? But if you are going to do remote inspection, if your concern is, and now you're saying, is it because they have an issue with packaging? Right. So are we, now you're back to COVID. Okay. So if you're saying that the product that's actually being produced on the vessel, frozen, palletized, shrink wrapped, there's an issue with frozen at sea a product, then you're back to a COVID issue because you didn't have the issue before. Okay, you've never worried about it in the past. But if your concern now is that frozen, a palletized product, if it's just frozen product that's coming to the factory, they will check it anyway. So a normal inspection, HACCP, according to the HACCP plan of the vessel. So you will look at the activities that take place in the vessels, particularly the water, the ice, sanitation protocols. But if you're worried about the packaging material becoming contaminated with COVID because of handling, then you need to take it back to PANEMO and actually say, do you see this as an issue in COVID, and how do you want the protocol to work? And therefore that's in your inspection program.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Any more question?
Boleh ditranslate Pak untuk Pak Dani? Boleh
Ya.
ditranslate jawabannya
Ya.
tadi buat Pak.
Jadi maksudnya adalah seperti yang biasanya saja. Jadi kalau memang biasanya menginspeksi di kapal ya bisa di kapal. Pakai remote juga bisa. Biasanya kalau dia produk beku mungkin tidak perlu khawatir. Kan karena gara-gara ada packaging aja itu. Karena kan dalam penelitian itu corona itu bisa hidup di karton itu loh. Kan di situ masalahnya sebetulnya. Tapi kan tidak semudah yang kita bayangkan. Apakah kartonnya mau di UV semua? Ya, mungkin fasilitas UV tidak ada juga. Atau di radiasi misalnya, terlalu mahal. Jadi tidak praktikal kira-kira gitu. Ini seperti biasa aja. Karena biasanya diinspeksi apa. Rasa begitu. Dan masalah menurut saya. Ada any question? Any other question?
May I have a question for Mike Dylan?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
please, Miss Titi.
Thank you, Pak.
I'm
What?
sorry. I will my camera on. I so interested about the fraudulent you have show at your presentations. How about if we possible to make agreement before we have a remote inspections? So we make agreement with them maybe to prevent the fraudulent for prevent that fraudulent.
Yeah, I think this is a fraudulent material, fraudulent record. So if they're not actually compliant, and fraud is a big issue now. We've actually seen fraud has went up 70% during the pandemic, where people are misdeclaring species, they're adding excessive amounts of water. It needs to be within the scope of a HACCP audit. So in this particular discussion, we're actually saying, are they manipulating the records? Are they actually doing things that actually affect the validity of the HACCP inspection? And it's for you as the inspection team to actually design inspection protocols that ensure that the activity is valid. So if you're checking the records in real time on the day, and you can actually physically see that they take a sample and that sample gets taken to a lab and the sample's checked, you can only go so far. At the end of the day, you normally, as an inspection team, have an idea about how much you trust particular factories because you've actually got their audit records. So if you've got concerns, you will at some point trigger an unannounced audit where you will actually just go to the factory without any pre-warning. And certainly the countries I work with or have done, we'll just do an unannounced inspection and check that what they're saying and doing is valid. But fraud is a big issue because pandemic, and it's difficult to get packaging material. We can't get cardboard here. It's difficult to get sanitizer. So when they say they've got hand sanitizer, our factories sometimes are waiting a week before the new sanitizer comes. So all of the things that you expect for a normal operational factory, it's just difficult to access sanitizers, cardboard, trained staff. What happens when your HACCP operators go ill in the pandemic and you still need to operate the plant? Where are the trained operators to actually undertake the work? All of those things in a pandemic are totally different. So when they give you the plan and they know that is fraudulent, that they've not got the right staff, they've not got the right chemicals, they've not actually kept, you need to make a decision as an inspection service. A scenario, it might be useful that we, and this is a discussion for the ministry, but I could at a future date actually invite some other governments to take part in the discussion. I could get the UK, Ivan Bertalo from the Seafish, and maybe actually get Canada industry and maybe an inspector to talk about what they're doing. Because at the minute, I've still got a factory on the door which is under DEFRA. So I know what the government are asking us to do in the plant. I know that Ivan Bertalo, who's on the board of IAFI, which is the government inspection network, I could probably find a few governments that maybe in a month or so we could actually, you finish what you're doing and then maybe we have another meeting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good idea. So I pass this plan to Novi or to Ita. Yeah, maybe we can invite from the government.
Yeah, I think the first thing is that you agree within the ministry that you want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And then we actually ask.
Not the Guido, but the ministries.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
say,
If the
but
ministry are happy,
Unity can facilitate it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's good idea. Yes. Any other comment or question? I don't know what time we have to close the discussion, Punovi. I don't know. Now it's
You're the boss.
3:30.
You're the
No,
boss.
I'm not the boss. My boss is Punovi.
No,
Punovi is
you're the
the
You're
organizer.
the moderator.
I just, I'm not the boss. I don't know what time we have to close this discussion. Oh, any question? Any question? Any other question?
Pak Sunaria,
Yes, please.
izin Dede Pak
Yes,
Mike.
yes, silakan, please.
Yeah. Based on your presentation, regarding your presentation, step number 3 for preparation the remote inspection. Yeah. Is state that the inspector send a list of the required documents. If in our SOP require document has been uploaded together with the request for the remote inspection from the food business operator, is that allowed? It means step number 3. Can we skip the step number 3?
Yeah, well, I've taken this from your SOP. So all I've done is actually added some points. Right? So this is your SOP. So I'm going from what you've said. All I would say is, in terms of audit preparation, I think it's useful for you now to break everything down. I think it's right that you've actually taken it step by step. How you want to rearrange it, because it's a practical inspection. How you want to rearrange it is up to your inspection lead. But I've just added what specific type of information, as you get to know what the audit scope is, as you get to know who the factory are, there might be specific questions that you ask. So, Mama Nining, you want to add anything?
No.
I can see that you're listening. Right? So I just actually put in at the beginning, for me, when we've looked at we're going to do a visit to this facility in audit preparation stage, we would identify in detail the type of records that we want, so that it's done. But the more that you do it, if this is your inspection protocol, it will change. You will try it. You will. I can't remember how many inspections per year I used to do, but it was a lot, because I was seconded to the government department and we went in and we inspected things. But standard protocol, there's the inspection, that's what you look at, this is how you do it, which is what you've got here. So I think the existing protocol you can use. The more that you use it, you'll actually make changes, because you'll find that some of the things on communication might not work the way that you want.
Okay, thank you.
Oke, tergantung kita. Silakan saja ya, yang praktis yang mana. Yang penting gampang dilaksanakan. Jangan mempersulit inspektur. Jadi harus mempermudah inspektur. Yang penting bisa tercapai tujuannya. Silakan saja. Ada any question? Any comment? Mike, I have silly question.
Sure.
To you, okay? Sometimes you use a term audit, okay? In your presentation or in your discussion. Sometimes you use inspection.
Yes.
But also sometimes you use assessment and then your presentation. So your what's your view about this three?
Well,
You told me before the time that some people cannot distinguish between audit and inspection.
okay.
You
Well,
used to ask me before.
Well,
Ah,
I'll give you experience, right? In 19 when I arrived in Canada in
Ah.
94, it was an inspection service,
ah.
and
Oh yes, I know.
right,
Based
but
on Canada, yes.
well, based under DFO, under
Yeah.
the Department of Fisheries and Ocean, but they wanted to become audit, yeah.
Yes, I know.
So we put in place the new, and if we're looking at audit, independent, objective verification of evidence proves that you're in control.
Yeah.
So to move from being an inspector to an auditor, they believed, and this is where they were at that time. I think Vance McEachran was the lead, along with Cameron Prince. They wanted to take a one step back view rather than just inspection, which was an on the day view. If it's done, and because they're now, although they actually moved from DFO, they still retain, and I also worked for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency after I worked with DFO, and we trained them in terms of looking at the systems in the factory, not only the product. Okay, so the shift in thinking was, rather than looking at see a problem, fix it, it was trying to move to see a cause, prevent it. So the idea was to upskill the inspection service to look more at a system level in the operation of the business, and to actually look at why problems were recurring, and actually look to prevent the recurrence, rather than actually seeing a problem on the day during an inspection and then actually change it. So if you actually say to me, I think really the professional skills of the inspector were upgraded to actually be more like auditors, but they still remain as inspectors, because legally they've actually got the power as an inspection service to actually involve the plant in penalties and fines and closure and suspension, and those are all legal duties actually within the ministry. So I think the difference is more, in the past when we talked about inspector, the inspection skills have been upgraded to include elements of audit, not that they've become auditors, but they've actually increased the skill.
Okay, thank you. In my opinion, we just share the knowledge. When the factory is not very good in the system, we have to inspect them. But if the factory have a good system, yeah, so we can convert to the audit, because inspection is high cost for this inspection actually.
Yeah, we can debate, because
yeah.
when I worked for Canada, we had Cooper and Lybrand as the private sector group looking at the inspection efficiency and the cost. Right.
Yes.
But and I understand, but I'm actually talking about legal powers and what a mandate of an inspection service is. So to me, the good thing, because again, having delivered the program for DFO, I then ended up doing the training program on audit and inspection for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So we try to upskill the people who are actually undertaking the role, and to increase the knowledge, specifically in food safety, in terms of what hazards really were and what typical hazards were in the category of product they looked at, and what the vectors and routes of contamination were and how they broke them, which is why I think for Pernemo, in terms of looking at a new hazard, it really is about the vectors, routes of contamination and validated controls that he would look at in terms of strengthening the inspection capability. But, you know, it's a debate rather than an answer,
Okay, so terserah Bu Ninin yang mau pakai istilah yang mana, ya. Kebiasaannya memang inspeksi, ya, inspeksi. Kalau proses itu inspection, proses. Agak susah kalau audit. Ya, jadi ini apa? Silakan, nanti supaya jelas. Yang penting konsisten, ya, Bu Ninin mau pakai yang mana.
Ya Pak, baik.
Oke. Ya. Kalau saya sih lebih cocok pasti inspection kalau di Indonesia.
Yeah.
Okay, any other question? If it's not, can we close this meeting to Novi? Or any other thing?
Dikembalikan ke Bu Ita. Silakan Bu Ita.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. I think good presentation. I think we have discussion clearly and friendly, clearly.
Always.
I think it's good. Friendly is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. It's not too formal. I think it's good to make the discussion more clear. Okay. Thank you very much, and give my gift to friend in Grimsby. Yeah, and take care.
Okay. Thank you.
Sometime, please came to Indonesia.
Yes. Okay. For sure.
I will come. I will go to UK as well if Ninin gives me a ticket. Okay. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay. And see you sometime.
Okay.
Bye.
I suggest to UNIDRO to ask to the minister to invite the government or competent authority people from Canada or other.
Okay, I'm happy. I will arrange as well. Yeah. As IAFE, I can ask. Yeah.
Very good idea. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you,
good evening.
Professor Mike Dillon. Before you leave, we have a present for you. A beautiful picture. Mbak Kiki, could you please help to share screen? There you go.
Mike, hi. Who is the professor? Who is the professor?
I think scenario.
The white man is the potatoes man or banana man. The black man is the rice man. So which one better? Sorry.
I think rice man.
Potatoes man. Yeah. So I think do you still eat fish and chips every time, Mike?
No, I'm now vegan. I only eat only vegetables now.
Oh, I see. Oh, you got vegetables. I miss fish and chips.
I think I will eat fish and chips again.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your time to have a very beautiful discussion this afternoon with us. Of course, morning your time, in order to improve the draft of remote inspection SOP to achieve an effective remote inspection. Not only about our draft SOP, we also discuss regarding the COVID protocol. Respond to the discussion, Pak Ahmad Purnomo, one of our expert, informed that he is currently developed the SOP of Hygiene Plus in the processing unit. The draft will be discussed tomorrow. So last but not least, I would like to invite Ibu Ninin, Mama Ninin tadi, our mother. Ibu Ninin, could you please officially close our workshop today? Time is yours.
Thank you, Mbak.
No, you're
Thank you very much for Mike. Actually, I would like to have new training for our inspector to carry out remote inspection or to carry out any inspection actually, because we need to improve our competency. I hope someday I ask kindly of you, Nido, to invite you. Like, okay, thank you very much again for your good discussion today for today. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu semua atas partisipasinya di dalam diskusi sehari ini dari pagi sampai sore. Semoga kita akan menyelesaikan SOP-nya. Kemudian nanti selesai SOP baru nanti akan kita sosialisasikan kembali. So we would like to continue to write our SOPs and then maybe we go back to you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, please don't mind if we
No
bother
problem.
you. Okay, thank you very much. Mungkin itu saja barangkali Bu Ita. Mohon maaf apabila di dalam penyelenggaraan ini terdapat kekurangan-kekurangan, terdapat kesalahan-kesalahan dari kami. Mohon dimaafkan. Terima kasih. Kami tutup atas nama Bapak Kepala Pusat Pak Widodo. Kita tutup pertemuan ini dengan mengucapkan alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. My boss Pak Widodo sends regard to you, Mike, because he could not join with us because he has to go with the minister.
Yeah, no problem.
You just need me, right? You just need me, right?
No, you give my regards to Suli Kadang, you give my regards to Mama Yanni, yeah? Okay.
Right. Actually, Yanni, I don't know whether she's in here still.
I know. It doesn't matter. You give Yanni my regards. Is she there?
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Ah! Yanni. I think Suli's ran away, yeah?
Sorry, I cannot join in discussion because I have a homework from Pak Widodo.
Widodo is hard man. Yeah.
He's a lucky man.
She's busy woman, right?
Yeah.
She's always busy.
Yeah. You know
Very
that.
good. But what about Suli's retired? So where is Suli now?
Sorry?
Who?
Suli Kadang.
Oh, Suli Kadang. He's already retired.
Retired already.
Yeah, but we need to bring her back and give her some work.
Yeah.
We need to keep the Mama Yanni, Mama Suli, Mama Anina together, yeah?
We miss you so much, Mike.
Yeah, no problem.
Yanni still have more time than me, so maybe I have more than 1 year, almost 2 years to retire.
Yeah, there is no retirement.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
I will drag you back to do some work.
retire, but still working.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
Yanni will be left behind.
Oh my God.
Very strong. But Yanni's strong.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
Harm.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
The hammer.
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 Yes.
Like
Yeah,
covered
yeah.
hammer.
Hammer.
Yeah,
Ladies.
I have many harms.
we need hammer. We need hammer.
No, she's
We need.
the hammer.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Nice to
Thank
see
See
you
you
again.
sometime.
Bye.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you.
See you sometimes. Indonesia, I hope.
Yes, same.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih
Sampai
Pak
ketemu.
Yusuf.
Terima kasih Bu Ninin.
Terima kasih
Terima kasih
Pak
Bayani.
Mbak Novia, Mbak Ita, Mbak Diana.
Terima
Mbak
kasih
Diana
Bu.
nongol. Mbak Diana nggak nongol ya?
Ikut meeting yang lain, ya.
Oke, terima kasih. Kita masih punya
Alhamdulillah.
PR ya?
Iya,
Masih punya
betul Bu.
PR ininya nih, apa namanya, SOP-nya.
Ya, nanti
Tadi
bisa bantu nanti mungkin Bu Novia dan tim bisa bantu untuk mereview atau ada bagian yang perlu ditambahkan, misalnya di draft Ibu kami sangat terbuka untuk mensupport itu, baik untuk penulisannya nanti atau nanti saat pembahasan juga.
ya siap.